Network.
Hola, me llamo Linda y vivo en Vancouver ahora. Ay, ¿qué más? No sé. I feel that I have come from very far with my journey as an individual. I feel that I have grown. I feel that I have discovered so much about myself, about the human race, about our minds and how we can use our minds to change the world. I know it's a very cliche thing to say, changing the world. What is changing the world? But it's a matter of being the person that you are and making an impact, no matter how small it is, to the person who is next to you, the person who lives down the street, the person who you connect with over Facebook. How are you going to make that person feel matters a lot.
One of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you was because you just graduated not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And I remember what that phase was like for me. And I just found it interesting to maybe get your view on what you're going through, like what are your thoughts about now that you're done with school, like even just going through your journey before graduating and just how you came to Vancouver, because I don't think I've ever really heard that story. So like, yeah, we'll just talk about all that good stuff and your evolution as a person and just all that stuff. But to begin with, give us a short, little bite about who you are, what you do.
Easy. Name is Linda. I met Nix, as we call him, back in St. Mary's when I joined IB1. He was in IB2 then.
This is in Nairobi, Kenya.
Yes. And at that time, I had come from a public school, which was very different from what the Saints boys, were used to. And the name of the school was Pangani Girls. So it was a bit of... just a little bit of culture shock.
Culture shock, yeah, yes. I was going to say.
Yes, in the sense that, St. Mary's were the Barbies. I don't know what you can explain.
Basically, private school kids, day school kids who are privileged and sheltered, etc.
Yes, and they get to go home every single day. And
whereas you were in boarding school, huh?
Well, I was in boarding school for the last 7 years, and that was very different, but it was also an eye-opening experience where you are in this school full of guys and you can interact and you can just socialize, and you also get to grow as a girl. And and
just a side note about the school we met at, the first, like from first grade all the way to year 11, it's all boys, and then only at the 12th year and the 13th year is where they introduced girls, and that's in the IB program. And so that's the only program in school that was mixed, and that's what she's talking about when she says, like, her experience as a girl in a guy school. So, yeah, how was that actually? Like, because I don't think I hear that perspective as much, but, like, what was that first... that instance when you're like, okay, I'm in St. Mary's full of all these guys?
Well, Pangani Girls, which was the public school I was in from Form 1 till Form 4. It's like 4 years of high school. We were all girls, and we didn't have much of an interaction with boys because... I don't know, there was just like some weird ban on our school, and the only interaction was when you go outside school for like social events, for sporting events, and I was one of the first daters, so I got a chance to go outside.
A lot, yeah.
But then coming into St. Mary's, we were like, on the first day we were like 6 girls, in a school full of boys.
Thousands of boys.
You guys were like 800 or something. And here you are, 6 freshly new girls.
Yeah.
You know, it was challenging because you could feel all these eyes on you. You could feel all the pressure. All, you know, guys want to ask you out all the time. Guys want to buy you lunch. Guys want to, you know, just want to show that they're there for you. But it was also... funny enough, that's why I made really good friends. Like, if I look back now, most of my friends are from St. Mary's, and most of them are actually guys. So, yeah.
So, like, take us back to before even joining Pangani. Like, before you joined Pangani Girls, which school did you go to?
I went to a bunch of schools.
Okay.
I went to one with... It was a private school. It was a private school only... It was a mixed private school, but the boarding section was only for girls.
Okay.
And it was called Thika Road Academy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was so strange. My parents decided that, you know, when you get to class 6, for all my siblings, you had to go to boarding school. So I went to my first boarding school, and it was a terrible experience. And I said, Mom, if you're not getting me out of this school, something will happen. So she felt the pressure, and she decided to take me to another private school. And this one was much better because they would wash our clothes, they would give us good food. The only things that you would do is like just brush your shoes, and that's it. Make sure that you maintain your personal hygiene, and then you go to class, and that's it. But the funny thing is, despite me going to boarding school, the school was so close to our house. I could walk home.
Really? That's painful. That's painful.
Exactly, right? You know, I'm just like, why are you guys taking me to boarding school? But then if I look back now, even as I am, you know, getting to grow and becoming an independent person here in Vancouver, I just look back and I see that boarding school is a reason why I'm this far in life. Like, just being away from home and just not knowing what to do without the presence of your parents or someone looking over you, just, you know, discovering who you really are from the inside going out.
Yeah. And so then there you are, introduced to a school full of kids who probably never went through any of that stuff. Did you
Never.
Did you have any opinions about that side of it? The fact that you're in a school full of, I guess, soft kids?
Oh yeah, I had, and I was thinking about this today. I was like, I remember the first time I was just interacting with the guys, and I was like, you know, using slang like, guy, you have a shoe, and they were looking at me like, what? A shoe is 10 shillings, but that's the slang language. And, you know, I was exposed to a different type of music. You know, St. Mary's is more of like, I don't know,
popular, whatever is popular.
Exactly. But then in Pangani Girls, and having an older brother as well, I listened to like reggae music, like deep, you know, dance hall music, and I'm like, you guys, you listen to Doba, and they're looking at me like, what is Doba? And I was like, am I the only one who is so out of place
you're
here?
a fish out of water.
Exactly. But I also got to learn that, you know, I was coming in from a different culture, different exposure, and they're also used to something else. And I sort of established like a middle ground where I integrated both sides, and I felt like I could fit in both aspects, the Barbie side and the Ob side.
So Barbie is kind of like slang for softy, privileged kid back in Kenya, and Ob, what she said, is like the total opposite. It's a kid who grew up in like tougher neighborhoods than what kids in St. Mary's were living in at the time or whatever. So that's interesting. I always wondered what that was like. And so how long did it take you to fit into St. Mary's then? Did it take you a while?
It took me, I would say, the first term, so the first 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah, just trying to learn and see the different aspects of life where kids could basically get what they wanted if their parents were the type to spoil them. You know, not everyone in St.
It was a mixed crowd,
Yeah. And then, You know, you've come from a school where people are getting sponsored just to even be in that school. And the concept in Pangani Girls was everyone, doesn't matter if your dad was the president, doesn't matter if you came from Marsabit where you were not privileged, everyone had to have the same hairstyle, the same shoes, the same everything. Everyone
it's like the army.
Standard.
They equalize everyone.
Yeah. So if you came into Pangani the first day, the first day maybe you tell because you could see, oh, this person came into this car, but like give it 3 days, you will not be able to tell who's who. Yeah.
And so that you think that was a good thing?
I think it was a good thing, and it was also a good thing in the sense that you would not be able to feel out of place, even if you're not from a very privileged background. Yeah. But then it also made some people disappear in the sense that despite the fact that they know their background, they still know the people who are overly privileged in the same school. And they somehow had to fight to get to the same level as this. So they end up getting lost themselves, you know? Yeah.
Wow. So how about like why did your parents feel the need to put you into boarding school like from the 6th grade? What was that, like a standard thing with everyone in your family, or?
Yeah, so my siblings, I have older brother and an older sister. My brother went to boarding school. My brother is about he should be turning 36 this year, and my sister should be turning 30 this year. Yes.
Nice.
So my brother, he went to boarding school when he was quite young. He went when he was in like class 4.
Oh, wow.
And he said no. He was my grandmother's baby. And my grandmother said, okay, you know what? It's fine. You don't have to go.
Yeah.
My sister, on the other hand, she had to go to boarding school. It was kind of like a military boarding school.
Wow.
Yeah.
The oldest always gets the worst. Because my sister went to Shags, aka the village, for her boarding. And she was the firstborn, so she went like out of town where kids hated kids from the city, and
But funny thing, that's where she met her better half.
Wow. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think for my parents, it was a ground for kids to sort of grow up and discover who they are. And, you know, back in Kenya, they always think like boarding school is where you get to study without all these distractions. And in the 90s, there was all this exposure to like media and like hip hop, and kids were sort of getting lost in the sense that you're being exposed to things like drugs and, you know, that type of thing. So parents always thought like, oh, boarding school is where my kids are safe. And it's not really a good way to think about how your kids grow up, because I feel that parents also need to play a role. Most of the parents have always thought, oh, teachers are the ones who mold our children. And they also grew up with the same perspective, like our teachers are the ones who molded us to become who we are today. But in boarding school, as much as you become independent and you learn all these things about yourself, you also feel like you only get a month with your parents. And within that month, they are full-time working parents. You only get to see them in the evening. So
how was that? Did you do you feel like you missed out on certain things growing up with your folks?
I did. I feel like I didn't get to really see them struggling. They struggled, yes, but they always made sure that we didn't see that side. It's like, you guys are going to school, go work, you'll never be lacking or anything like that, but then we get to struggle and you guys don't get to see the struggle. So I would have loved to see like how far, depending on like especially where they are right now, like seeing that struggle. We only got to see a little bit of it, but then the real struggle, we never got to see that.
Why is it important for you to see your parents struggling?
I guess it helps me even now, like...
I feel like it's more so now. I feel like it's more so now.
Yeah, now you're all by yourself. Like, you don't have mom or dad to always go cry to, like, mom, I need this, mom, I need that. You get to discover how far and how hard you can work to get whatever it is that you want.
You kind of want a reference that you can relate to closely to feel like, okay, what should I be doing right now? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Sorry,
and
go
also,
ahead.
Back to the question of why I felt the need to see my parents in that state. Like, the things about growing up that I wish they shared with me. Like things that teachers are expected to teach us.
Okay.
I feel that my parents should have had that role to teach. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense, and I guess which is why I was asking if you like your thoughts on boarding school, because there's that aspect of being removed from a lot just to focus on your studies. And I know that assumption that parents have in Kenya, where I was lucky enough to escape that idea, but all my siblings before me had to go through that same thing, because my parents thought the same way in the 90s, like boarding school is where my kids will be safe from all this crap happening. And the reason, I guess, I was asking about your thoughts is because of how you said you felt like you missed out on certain things, and at the same time teachers are expected to like really teach you about life, and they don't. And even in day school, they hardly, only a few teachers would take the time out to actually teach you about life.
Right.
And now I'm imagining if you're away from home, your teachers aren't doing the job, but you're at home, your parents can't do the job. So it's like, where did you learn? How did you not become a fuck up? You know what I mean? Like, how did you find those values that you knew you needed innately to kind of grow up and be?
My parents have been very strict growing up.
Okay.
Like you said, fuck up was not an option. They've always installed this thing of you can't just do things the way you want in life. You can't just make choices the way you want in life. There's always going to be consequences. So growing up, I sort of had a fear of letting my parents down, just because now is when I see it. I didn't want them to look bad, and I also didn't want to look bad in my family. My family has a diverse set of black sheeps. There are drunkards. There are, people who do not, like men who don't respect women.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Things like that. Yeah. But then, like, seeing that side of my family also made me go like, you're the last one here and you can't really mess things up. And yeah, that's why I didn't want to. So you learned people.
You learned more from seeing people actually mess up then.
Seeing people and also interacting with my cousins.
Okay.
Like, most of my cousins are older than me.
Same, yeah.
So I borrowed things from my brother. Like, I learned how to dance from my brother. I learned, the ways of college life from my sister. I used to say, oh, Dad, I'm going to sleep at my sister's this weekend. And it was like, okay, cool. But really, what we were going to do is going out and doing all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, and that's cool that you had that.
Yeah, and that's how I got to learn.
How early did you start going out? You can be honest. I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours.
I started going out actually when I went to St. Mary's.
Oh, really? Okay, that was late.
It was late.
Okay.
It was
I was
very
like
late.
17, 18?
18.
18, okay.
19.
I started at 14.
What? I wish.
All of us did, actually.
Oh my
All of, like, everyone that I know, we all started around the same time. And that was probably
insane.
14, 15.
I mean, I could tell from some people in St. Mary's.
Yeah.
But you, 14.
Oh, yeah. No, it's also because so the neighborhood I grew up in, where I grew up with your cousin, I guess, Kare's, from your Meru side.
Okay.
One of your cousins from your Meru side called Marvin. And the reason I know he's related to Kare is because he saw Kare on my Snap. And then on my Instagram stories, and then he was like, is that such and such? I was like, yeah. I asked him, how do you know her? Then he told me they're somehow related. So, but in that neighborhood, him, along with a bunch of other guys that I knew, they were a little older than I was.
Right.
So they introduced me to, same, I guess what your sister did for you, my friends kind of did for me. Because I was the youngest in the crew, so like they would take me out, talk to the bouncer for me, and do like all that shifty stuff.
It gives me a question. How were you able to sneak out of your house?
Yeah. I mean, the usual sleepover. Just tell your parents it's a sleepover. Also, I guess as a guy, you don't really need to give as many details.
True.
So that's probably why I got away with a lot more, much earlier.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Cool. Yeah. So like, and speaking of your parents and how they raised you, how do you feel about them raising you so strict now that you're looking back? Is like, what are you what are you doing with that information now that you know they were strict on you, and maybe there were certain things you wish you could have, I don't know, if there's things maybe you wish you tried earlier, or are there things you're like, holy crap, I have to deal with this now because I've never dealt with it? What's that like?
I would say the good side would be I didn't really get to make a lot of mistakes, like, getting pregnant early, or
was that a thing with people? Have you like had that experience with your friends?
Oh yeah. I like the people we finished high school. As soon as we finished, they were expecting kids. The people who would not be able to come back to school because they are expecting kids. The people who've had to abort children because they could not face up their parents as the situation. So things like that, like being aware that it's not an option for you to mess up and ruin your future. That has been very valuable even now as someone who's just completed university and looking forward to the future. But there are things I wish I tried. Like having a boyfriend when I am 13 and being open to them about that. That would be something that I wish I tried then, instead of, even now, still not being able to fully tell them, oh, I'm actually dating someone, without them thinking, oh, it's serious, like she's getting married. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say I'm seeing someone. Yeah.
Interesting. How has that affected relationships with you and any guys you've tried dating?
It's interesting because when you are introducing, as much as my dad has said, oh, if you're seeing someone, let me know. But I know the moment I go like, hey, Dad, I'm dating this guy, it's like, who is this guy? I want to punch the lights out of him, Like I want to make sure he feels so small, he's not going to do anything to my girl. That kind of thing. Forgot the question.
No, how is the fact that they're so strict on you affected your relationships with those guys, the guys that you have dated so far?
Yes. I've had a challenge of guys saying I am too, like I've built a wall around myself, like in such a way that I'm overly protective of myself. I come across as someone who is not easily trusting, who's not easily, like it's so hard for me to let you in. Like it has to take you some effort, some sort of work to make sure that, you're in my circle of trust. That has been an issue before. Yeah.
So it took you a while at some point to bring someone in. Did they just give up on you, or?
They worked hard.
Okay, nice.
They worked hard. At least the two people I've had a very serious relationship with, they've really worked hard to make sure that they could earn my trust.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, how about before you left home? What was life like as a kid growing up? Were you did that mean like you were all about your studies then growing up, and like it was all books?
Oh yeah, it was all books. I was the type of kid who, despite going to, before even going to boarding school, I was in a day school, Mothaga Primary School, when it was a really good school. It was a really good school. Right after school, you go to tuition. Even if it was not needed, but my parents had this thing of she had to be top 3.
Oh, wow.
In the classroom.
Wow.
And I've been top 3 for the longest time I can remember.
Wow.
Up until when I went to high school, when you meet people who are super smart and you're the first time you go home and you're position 19 and your parents are like, what is going on? You've not been working hard, you've not been studying, you just went to experiment, things like that. So
that's a lot of pressure.
Oh yeah, it's
and
fun.
I feel like a lot of kids, but I don't know, for me, I know where all this is coming from because I grew up in Kenya too, and I understand where parents like those come from. But it's also I feel like in the grand scheme of things, it's not a very helpful kind of mentality. And I've seen in my own family just where that goes, really hammering being straight edge and books with people, and even just in general in Kenya, I feel like there's so many kids who are under pressure just to perform, but then they never really learn anything outside of that. Because it's so easy back home to be top 3, as long as you can literally stick to your books,
right,
you'll be top 3. It doesn't take anything else. But then suddenly you finish school and then you're expected to be more than just your books. Then it's like, okay,
supposed
now
to be this
what?
other person.
Yeah. So now, with that being said, where did you, considering it was all books, where did you learn your soft skills? You said your cousins then? Like your cousins would teach you this type of stuff, your sister would take you out. Is that kind of how you learned, I guess, like I said, the soft skills? Or?
Yeah, and I guess I shouldn't be so hard on my parents. My dad, I can be hard on him because I feel like he's worked for the government his whole life. He's basically hustled his whole life. My dad started off as what are they called? Like a wheat trader.
Oh, okay.
He would carry his briefcase from Nairobi and go all the way to Nyahururu just to be like a broker for wheat.
Okay.
And then he just worked his way up. But as soon as he joined the military, I probably shouldn't say what position he worked in the military, he became a changed person because of, military in Kenya is something like ranking is important.
I think that's the military in general.
Yeah,
it's all about climbing that.
Exactly. So he became a bit changed, and that aspect of controlling, not in a bad way, but like being in control of situations was sort of brought home as well. So like making sure your kids are not messing up in school, they're not messing up in life. If it means my dad's taking my phone when I was in high school a bunch of times. Just like, who's that calling you? That's a boy's name, give me your phone.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah, really? It's happened before. Yeah. But then my mom, despite so growing up, I was more of a daddy's girl, like from, let's say, class 1 all the way to class 7, right before I went to boarding school. Daddy, I want this. Daddy, you go ask your mom. Your mom says no, you know who to go to ask. Dad. But then when I started growing up and becoming a woman, you somehow sort of start getting closer to your mom. And my mom has been that person who we can just like share tiny funny secrets together. We'll be walking down the street and you see a girl struggling to walk in heels and we literally just turn and look at each other and start smiling. That kind of thing. So she's the person who has really like given me those soft skills, like telling me, Wacheke, you've seen how people in life are turning out to be because of the choices that they made. People have been given opportunities on a silver platter and they have wasted them. I had a cousin who he got a full paid scholarship to one of the Ivy League schools. And because of situations prior to going to this university, he started drinking a lot and he just got completely lost. Once he got to like that Ivy League school, things just got too overwhelming for him and he wasn't able to complete the scholarship. He had to come back to Kenya, start from scratch, things like that, like highlighting things like not in a bad way but just to show you like if you decide, it's a choice, if you decide to make this choice today, it's going to affect the type of person you're going to be in the future. And that's not to say that I have not made mistakes. I have made tons of mistakes to a point where my dad's not talking to me.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when I was in St. Mary's.
Really?
Yes.
What type of mistakes are we talking about?
For example, going out on your prom night and telling my dad I'm going for a sleepover, and then he just so happens.
We need to give a bit more context. So, what she's talking about is the fact that in the year 12 and 13, or during the IB pre-university program, usually students in St. Mary's the students finishing in that year would have a prom organized for them and their classmates by the earlier year of IB. So the IB1s would plan the IB2 prom. So Linda was an IB1 when I was in IB2, and so their group would plan our prom. And so people who would plan the prom would sometimes go out to the people who are celebrating during the prom and stuff. So she ended up being one of those people. Now go.
Yeah, so that was the first night I actually went out.
Okay.
No, that was probably like second night because my sister had previously taken me out, but going out and actually drinking.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay.
So my dad was really good friends with a friend of mine. Her parents were really good friends with my parents. So I said, you know what, we're just going to sleep over at their house. Her mom's going to come pick us up after the prom, and we're just going to go home, sleep, whatever. But then we had the situation where someone's car broke down before we went for prom.
Oh,
so
yikes.
when we were on our way, after preparing everything and making sure your prom is okay, on our way to go get ready, someone's car broke down, and it was just like messy, and finally got a chance to go home and change. But then what my friend failed to tell me was that her mom was traveling the night of our prom.
Okay.
So my dad decides to call the mom. Now, after prom, after going out and like having shots with whoever, having an amazing night. Yeah. Now, the next day I had to deal with a hangover and an angry father.
Oh,
my dad called to ask my friend's mom, how did it go? Like, did you guys get home safe? And I was like, oh yeah, they got home safely. I'm in Tanzania. Yeah, they were able. My dad's like, what? I thought you're the one who was picking them up.
Oh.
So that's where he found out, like, something is not right. So he gives me a call, and I'm here with a hangover. He's like, Wacheke, get home now.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was one time my dad didn't speak to me for a really long time. Yeah. To a point where my auntie had to even intervene and, like, try and make sure, things go out.
Did you think that was it fair? Do you think it was fair?
I don't think it was fair.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I thought he was overreacting. I was there thinking, oh, now I'm 19. I'm old enough to do, whatever I want, kind of thing. And I think it's when he found out I was dating someone who is not Christian.
Oh, wow, that's another layer.
Yeah. And I was just, I think he didn't have the heart to ask me outright, like, are you seeing someone?
Oh, okay.
But he just said, if you are seeing someone, just let me know. But I knew the moment I said that, it would be another huge layer on top of what we're just trying to deal with right now. So, yeah.
Wow. And so how then do you decide how do they let you go to Canada on your own if they've been so, like, that on your life? How did that decision come about? Yeah.
It's a very interesting journey. Now that I look back, how I realized I wanted to go study abroad was when I was in Form 2. I was not doing very well in my chemistry and my physics, and my mom had a really good friend whose son had just become the second best student in Kenya.
Okay.
He went to Mangu High School.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my mom was like, oh, since your son is not, like, doing anything right now, he just finished his Form 4, is he able to come and, like, provide some sort of help, tuition, whatever, for my daughter during the holidays? So that's when I met him, and he was getting a scholarship to go to Yale. Full paid scholarship.
Snap.
Didn't have to drop a cent.
Yeah.
And he was also working for Equity Bank, the one back in Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah. So I felt really inspired. I was like, oh my gosh, like, people can actually do this.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of working hard. And he had previously shared, my mom had shared a previous story of how his family had struggled so much to get to where they are. Even him becoming, like, top, like, the second best student in the whole country. It didn't come easy.
Yeah.
So that's where
a lot of that high school, Mangu High School, has, like, lots of those cases, I assume. Yeah. Right? But it has, like, the smartest kids.
Smart. Like, he was, like, absolutely smart. He asked me I'll never forget that day. He put a glass on the table. It was right after our tuition session. He put a glass on the table, and he put a pen inside that glass, and he said, Linda, rather Wacheke, how would you take that pen out of that glass without lifting it, without shaking the table, without doing anything? And I was like, what are you trying? I was in Form 2, I was 16. I'm like, okay.
Even right now,
you don't even know I have a crush on you, but yeah, like, what are you trying to do? And he's just like, just fill it with a glass, just fill it with water.
Oh, yeah, snap.
Exactly, And I was like, I could have thought of that. Like, it's so easy.
Yeah.
And yeah, so him getting this whole experience of like going to Yale and like studying, not have to pay a single cent, really inspired me. And I said, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to go abroad as well. So that's where my journey started. And then as soon as I finished Form 4, my dad was like, okay, you get the grades and then you can go abroad. I got the grades. I was like, okay, now my grades are out, Dad, I did well. And he was like, no, you're too young.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my goodness.
That was 19?
That was 18.
18, okay.
Yeah.
Form 4, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
So before, okay, so
yeah,
that's...
so this was even way before
St.
Saints.
Mary's.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I didn't even know Saints existed at that time.
Wow.
I knew Saints was there. It was a boys' school, but I
Usually
was
it
like,
wasn't in your horizon or anything. Yeah.
Not even.
Yeah.
So I spoke to my aunt, who is like feminist, like women education. This is a bit crazy, but yeah. And she said, you know what? Don't get upset. Your dad doesn't want you to go out. Maybe he thinks that you're too young. My dad's traveled. He's seen all sort of madness that people do when they get exposed while they're young. So he said, yeah, that's why he said you can't go now. My auntie said, you know what? There's a program in St. Mary's and it takes 2 years to do. It's like you get a diploma. And I was like, but eventually you get to go abroad. Because like, fine, let's go see, sign up for it. They made me do this weird test, and I'm like, this is so easy. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I remember the first day of Saints, just walking in and like the exposure, like writing the first exam. I thought it was a joke.
Oh, wow.
I honestly felt
too
it was
easy?
It was too easy.
Wow.
Too easy.
Nice.
So that's how my Canada experience began.
Okay, and so now you're in IB. How did you realize, okay, because you had the idea that you wanted to go abroad, but how did you zero in on Canada or Vancouver?
My first choice of going abroad was definitely UK, just because our systems are similar.
Match, yeah.
Everything just matches. It's easier to get in, kind of thing. But then, I don't know if you remember Mrs. Mwangi. She was the economics teacher.
Yes.
Sadly, she passed away.
Yeah, she did.
But I had mentioned to her, like, I would want to go abroad, and, UK or Canada is one of my options. And whenever a Canadian representative from whatever school came to school, she would always call me to class. Doesn't matter what's going on. She's like, Linda, come.
Yeah, they used to actually like gather us all.
Exactly.
I remember during those sessions.
Yeah. There's one time she just told me.
Oh, just you? Okay.
Yeah, she was like, Linda, come, I want you to see someone.
Yeah.
She introduced me briefly. She told me they're having a session downtown Nairobi. You should go.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. That's how UBC happened.
Okay, and so you went to one of those and met a UBC representative?
Yes.
Okay, and what did they tell you that made you be like, this is it?
Have you ever seen a UBC brochure?
Yeah, I know, it's hard.
It's like, I'm going.
Yeah.
I don't care. I'm going.
That's true, and especially for someone who's like been held, like, not held back, but someone who's been guarded so much. I can only imagine what a UBC brochure looks like. And had you traveled much before?
No.
You'd never left the country?
I'd only been to South Africa, to
wow.
that's it.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine what that's like, because it's like UBC is beautiful, so that goes without saying. Yeah.
And at that time I was actually dating someone who played, I'm not going to mention names, but he was playing soccer. He was really good at soccer. And when we looked at those brochures, we were like, damn, you can get a football scholarship. I could, just like dreaming big and seeing yourself there, and that's how it happened.
And so, okay, fast forward to, so IB was a breeze for you education-wise then, I'm assuming.
Except the sciences, because I hated sciences.
Okay.
But everything else was just
easy. And so once you finish IB and you knew where you wanted to apply, you apply, get your visa, everything was smooth, like.
Yeah. The process wasn't as bad. The good thing is I had you guys who had previously been to Canada, so I just like talked to like Aram and said, I know you're in UBC, like what's required of me, and he was very helpful.
Yeah, shout out to Aram.
Yeah, Aram, I'm here because of y'all. He was willing to go through my applications and read through them and give any feedback, that kind of thing. So the process was very smooth.
Yeah, and so And your dad was super okay at this point since you were old enough and you had the grades?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he was okay because I was doing well in St. Mary's. I was a leader in St. Mary's.
Yeah.
You know, teachers are like looking at me like, oh my gosh, this girl, she's hardworking. And I'm like, this school is a breeze. Like, you guys get serious, you know? Yeah, that's why.
Okay, nice. What do you think, aside from IB being so easy, what was like your fondest memory of St. Mary's? Like, what did it add any value to you as a person? Do you feel that way? Because I understand for the girls who come to St. Mary's, your attachment might not be the same because it's just 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for us who've been there for years, it's like a whole different, it's like a fairy tale. But like, what for you, what does St. Mary's bring up in your mind?
I think how, like, the brotherhood that just existed with St. Mary's. Like,
So it was infectious then?
oh, yes.
Okay.
It was, like, once a saint, always a saint.
Yeah,
that kind
for
of
sure.
thing. I really envied that. Like, you guys have been friends since class 1.
Yeah.
I can barely remember people I went to class 1 with because of the number of schools I've been to. And, you know, you guys always being there for each other and just, like, sticking out for each other. I really envy that. And I said, you know what? I think this is where I'm going to make good friends, like true friends, people who are real. I mean, there's always like flakes and everything,
Of course, yeah.
but you know, like, it was a really fun time. One of the best.
Yeah.
Those 2 years were one of the best times of my life.
I agree. I feel like IB, I don't know if it's the same now, but like IB was special. I'd been in St. Mary's my whole life before then, but even then, like IB was so different because you have a different level of freedom. You're the oldest students in the school.
Yeah.
It's like
You wear a different uniform.
Yeah, different uniform.
You got black tie.
Yeah, it's true. It's a whole. So once you got to, let's fast forward all the way to you land in Canada, your first night or day or whatever. What was that like? What did you feel? What were you going through? Were you sad? Did you get sad, or were you just like all systems go?
Oh no, it was sad because you are flying like thousands and thousands of miles across the world, and you're in a different place. You don't know anyone. I was trying to figure out some long distance relationship which did not end up working.
Yeah.
And my mom felt guilty the night before I was leaving because she had already made plans to go for another trip, and she was like, you know what, why don't we just fly out the same time? It'll be easier for everyone. So my mom, when we get to the airport, she's like, I can't believe, until this day, when she was here just the other day, she's like, till this day I can't believe that like I let my baby go to
she
Canada.
didn't see you off.
No,
wow.
she saw me off, but she was also taking a flight to go to Greece.
Okay.
She was like, I can't believe I let my baby go to a land that I've never been. She knows no one. And here I am going on a cruise to Greece.
Okay.
Like, she still feels guilty up
Really?
until today.
Aww.
But I'm like, you know what? It is what it is.
Yeah.
I went, I experienced, it was hard, like trying to make new friends, and even if you're trying to like link up with people who are here, like Adam and like
they live in different cities,
different schools, different timetables, you know. The weather was brutal, but...
What month did you arrive in?
I got here in August 14th.
Okay, so it wasn't cold yet.
It wasn't cold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What was your first winter here like?
Oh my gosh, thank God I got to go home.
Oh wow,
That Christmas.
you escaped. Oh wow.
Yes.
But and then did you stay away for the whole winter?
No.
Okay.
So I was here from August till... The good thing is with UBC, they have like an orientation program where all international students get to meet. So I got to meet like some people from Kenya, Uganda, whatever place. And we became really good friends. Even till today, we're good friends. But... I got to go home in Christmas after experiencing winter in quotes, and like getting that, it was kind of like a reboost, like, okay, you can do this. So as much as you're going home, you're going to eat all the food, all the nice food that you've missed. You're going to get all this attention from your parents. It gives you like a boost to go back and just push even harder.
You only spent your first semester before you visited home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that was quick.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you had left at all? Or did it?
I did, because it wasn't just me. Back in Kenya, it wasn't just me who left. A lot of us had left around the same time.
Okay.
So most of us were also coming back. And it's like, oh my God, you guys have had an experience in the UK.
Yeah.
I've come back from Canada. The people who stayed, they also want to hear all these stories, kind of thing. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah.
I remember my first visit was, I think, in my second year. And it was...
You came?
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay.
It was so awkward. It was the most awkward visit I've had, like, back home, because it's 2 years is too short to feel like a stranger, but it's long. It's, I don't know how to explain it. It's like long enough to feel like a stranger, but not long enough to call the other place home. So Kenya felt weird, Vancouver felt weird. It just was all weird. Also because my initial experience here was not the most fun experience. Talking about all those weather struggles and financial stuff obviously happened.
Right.
But yeah. So what was your experience when you came back from visiting home? Were you were re-energized, I guess? Yeah.
I was re-energized, and I also felt like the struggle is not yet over. For most students, like in first year, it's your hardest, because you know, back in Kenya, you're like, yeah, you're used to the system. You know, we're so used to books, like we're so used to being book smart. But when it comes to other things, like, you know,
coursework,
exactly, like just being exposed to the world itself, we're not very. For us, we had to learn the hard way. Like, you had to do your own kind of thing just to see, this is my ground, this is where I'm comfortable. But then for people who have studied here, they've lived here, it's kind of like the usual thing. They start working when they're 15, or is it 13? I don't know.
That's a big one. We talked about this with Adam as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
so it was your first time having to get a part-time job, I assume?
I didn't even get a part-time job until I was in my third year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just because my parents and being books, like, just focus on your books. Yeah.
So what's your first year like then?
First year was hard. It was really, really hard.
What was hard about it?
Just the education system is so different. People are asking you to apply what you know, and you're like, I just know about the books, you know?
So that's, I think, and so IB didn't help with that, because I think that's what IB was supposed to prepare you for, right?
It did to some extent, but the subjects like business in itself, you know, in Kenya you're using Kenyan examples, but then you come here and you're using like Air Canada, like Suncor, things like that.
So the context was just confusing.
It was different. It was different, and professors are always like, you know, tell me when I'm wrong. Like,
and you're used to teachers always having to be right.
Yeah, you know how in school you're like, Miss whoever, Mr. whoever. Here they're like, no, call me Jeff. I'm like,
it's weird.
I can't do that. Yeah. No, impossible. Like, I'm disrespecting you, you know? Yeah.
Talk about that, because that's really interesting. Aside from school, that culture shock, things are so different here. What was navigating such stuff for you? Like, what were your initial cultural shocks, like, that you first encountered?
It was fear, like just being scared of doing the wrong thing.
So it was all internal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can't really go share this with someone, because they have different experiences. Maybe they're like, oh my God, this is my ground, and there are other people who are like, I don't know, and you're also trying to figure yourself out. It was mostly being afraid.
Okay.
Afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being too, like, you know, when you go back home, people are like, you've changed. You know?
Yeah.
Like...
That's weird, because you're explaining how, like, you're afraid of opening up to this new world, but then you're also afraid of disappointing the world you just left. So I think that's why a lot of us find ourselves in that weird position where Kenya feels weird and Vancouver feels weird.
Exactly.
Because in Vancouver, you're trying not to ruffle feathers, and then you go back home, you're like, oh my God, have I become a weirdo? You're worried about other people, and it's like, you forget to live your own life, kind of a thing.
Exactly. I've become too liberal, like, it's not the way I see things now, and people are like, no, that's not, when you go back home, that's not how you do things. You're becoming crazy, you know?
Yeah, you become westernized.
You're becoming Mzungu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you find the people here? What did you think about the people when you first came?
The people were tricky. In the sense that some was so nice to a point where you don't know if they're just being nice because you're from a different country, you're from a different place, or they're genuinely being nice. So you know how back home when I run into you, I'll be like, hey, Nix, what's up? How are you? You'll be like, yo, I'm fine. How are you? We start talking.
Yeah.
And you, despite the fact that you're in a rush, we'll still end up finding 10 minutes to just catch up. Here, it's like, hi, the guy's already gone.
No matter how long you've known each other.
And you're left turning, looking at the person like, oh, they've gone. Okay, keep walking.
You know what? I'm gonna share a quick story about what happened a few weeks ago. I met someone who was actually from back home. We're not that close, but like close enough where we would have a 10-minute. But funny enough, this time when I was inside the Starbucks and I was right at the window just on my laptop, and so I saw this person outside with a significant other, and like they just waved from outside and went, and they kept walking. I was like, that was weird, especially two people from home to do that. It doesn't make any sense. But But I was kind of okay with it because I was like, if this is how we've decided to do it, that's fine. But it's like, damn, am I becoming a weird Vancouver
and it makes me get scared too. Like when I go home, am I that type of person who's just becoming standoffish? Like, hi, bye. Like, you know, it's for me, I want to know how you're doing, you know. And then now you're so used to this thing of just quick. Hi, bye. And that was one of the... But then there's also a thing where people say, yes, Canadians are nice, but they're not kind.
Yeah, polite, but I say polite but not nice.
Kind.
Yeah, not kind. Yep.
Yes. There's some people who are genuinely like that. There's some who are actually kind. Yeah.
And so, first year was figuring out all this stuff. What was second year like?
Second year was more...
What did you study, actually? We should probably... What did you... what did you study in university?
I did business.
Okay.
So it's commerce, Bachelor of Commerce.
Okay, cool. All right, so second year, what's second year?
Second year, it was more of, okay, now I know how things sort of run. I can experiment, but not too much. Just a little bit. I don't want my parents to go crazy on me and we're trying to call you, we can't find you, kind of thing.
What kind of experiments are we talking?
Just like going out without feeling guilty, you know? Like hanging out with guys and not feeling awkward or, you know, just embracing the different aspects of Vancouver. You know? Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And what was that experience like? Was it weird at first or did you just jump right into...
It was weird because you're also learning that, you can also be street smart. Like, whatever you've learned in Kenya, whatever I've learned in boarding school is an advantage to some people here. I've had roommates who they would get 92% average year round. But when you wake up in the morning and you're like, hey, good morning, how are you? Would you like some breakfast? Like, good morning, and they're back to their room. And that's it. Like, no interaction whatsoever, as much as you're trying to reach out, that kind of thing. They're book smart, they have all this knowledge, but when it comes to like social life, it's just so that's when I started learning, like, the things I can tolerate and the things I just can't be around people who are so much to themselves because I will end up getting depressed or like shutting down and that's another thing. Like, we know how mental illness is such a big thing here.
That's interesting that you are that aware, like in second year. I don't think I was thinking that far into it in terms of like the type of people I want to be around and stuff like that. What did you... Who are your first... Do you remember making your first few friends here?
It was a bit hard because... Okay, maybe it was hard because I came in when I was a bit more mature than most people. Okay. So I finished Form 4 when I was 18. So by the time I was joining St. Mary's, I was 19, 20. Then by 21 was when I was in first year. So... It was like, okay, this 17-year-old kids are doing all this crazy stuff. Like, I can go to a frat party, but I don't feel so comfortable. Like, I'm going to leave now kind of thing. So that's when I started seeing all these things. I'm kind of happy that my dad actually let me stay in Kenya for that long before allowing me to go. It
seems like for you, it was like that buffer time between St. Mary's and university, at least it was planned for kind of a thing, rather than, at least for us, we did IB too, but it was just a continuation of Saints.
Right.
And it wasn't really like, okay, we finished one thing, like we weren't really bridging anything. So literally, even if we did IB wasn't really a bridge, so we were literally starting from scratch. But I feel like for you, having to switch to IB and then switch out of it was like a preparation almost for like
for
that
life.
other feeling.
Right.
That's interesting. And so what was university easy for you then?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No. First year, second year were the worst years of my university life. Just because I was just still bringing the, like, studies and not being involved as much as I would want to, and ending, like, failing. Despite working so hard, like, you still fail.
I feel like that's something a lot of people go through.
Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, it's not fair that this person was out last night and they get a 91%, and here I am sticking through all this time and end up getting a 50%.
What was it? Was it what you were saying, the context of the content, or was it you still struggling with your environment?
I think it was just not establishing that balance of, work, play, life kind of thing. Like allocating those different hours for different aspects of your life. Like there's time to study, there's time to play, there's time to socialize. I think our system in Kenya failed to acknowledge that it's very, very important. Our parents are seeing it now because of how, like, my sister has kids, so their grandchildren, it's important for them to have, like, if you're going to be involved with music or, developing those small, like, becoming a holistic person in general.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's very important. I wish I could play an instrument. Like, I'm struggling to learn how to play the drums before I'm 30 or whatever.
Are you really learning the drums?
No, not yet. I've signed up for classes. I just haven't gone yet.
Oh, okay. Have you always had a passion for music?
Yeah. I always pick up the drums when I'm listening to music. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ever since how old?
Maybe in my teenage years.
Oh, yeah?
17, 18 then.
What was your earliest memory of getting interested in the drums?
Oof. Can I remember? I don't know. I think it's just... maybe I was in, like, Form 2 or Form 3.
Okay.
In Pangani Girls, we didn't have, like, a nice drum set like St. Mary's had. It was like, that traditional drum that when you does that one. And just seeing how, like, girls just taught themselves how to play that for, like, inter-house drama competitions, like things like that.
And so that was like your earliest interest in it. Oh, that's cool. What do you want to play in a band or something?
No.
Or what? You just want to learn for fun?
Just for fun.
Oh, okay, cool. Nice. So good luck when you start.
Thank you.
So second year, then third year. What's third year like? Are you kind of getting into your mold now, or?
Yeah. Third year is when you've been home at least twice or 3 times. You've seen your friends. You've shared what they're going through. You've shared what you're going through, and you were like, okay, it's not just me who's struggling, who's feeling this pressure, or it's now like a moment where you've seen what works for you and what doesn't work for you, kind of thing. So just being more involved with, like, clubs and societies, things like that, and still being able to work hard. Funny enough, first year, second year was like, my average was like 60 something, like 50 something, barely. And then you get to third year, like, okay, you know what? I need to be more involved with things. I need to participate in, like, I was involved with African Awareness Initiative, things like that. Planning for the events, things like that. And then you still have time to study and still have time to go hang out with your friends, go out, kind of thing. Just establishing that balance. And then third year is when I started going to the gym.
Okay.
And that made a huge difference in my life. Just being very comfortable in my body and not feeling I have to do it for someone else. Or
was that a thing for you before?
It's like body, I have to look nice. Like, you know, that mkuyet has to look good, you know. Forgive my language.
Yeah, mkuyet is again, that's Kenyan slang for ass.
I think it's more of St. Mary's.
I guess it was a Saints thing pretty much.
Yeah.
They just signaled 10 minutes. I'm going to try and rush this. So, third year, you're getting into like your thing. You're starting to feel a bit more at home here. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming fourth year is just an extended version of the same thing.
Right.
Now, as someone who's graduated, the person who first came here and was afraid to do anything to bother Vancouverites or do something to disappoint their parents back home, that person versus who you are right now, what do you think is the biggest change?
The biggest change would be, this is now a girl who has her own mind. She speaks her mind. She says whatever she thinks. That has been a huge change. And also accepting that everyone has their own opinion of you, of whatever it is in the world. It's just what feels right to you from the inside. I remember I had a huge challenge with religion, just because, you know, you've grown up in a Christian family and it's assumed that you have to be Christian, but then you're here where it's not as important to people, and you're like, you know, faith is something personal, and that's something I've come to learn. It's something I have to choose, not my parents have to choose for me, kind of thing. So yeah, that's
cool. I mean, I second that, because religion's a big one for me too, because I grew up Christian as well, and one of my earliest struggles was just that. It's like, okay, I no longer have to go to church every Sunday because it's up to me. And then I realized, did I even like going to church in the first place?
Exactly.
And then you're like, what is this Christianity thing? Why do I even feel the pressure to go to church? And then you go down that rabbit hole and it's like...
why did it come to Kenya?
Yeah.
Like, you know, things like that. It's just, you start analyzing it.
Yeah. Where are you at right now with that? You said faith is a personal thing. Would you still identify as a Christian? Or
I still would identify as a Christian because I do believe in a supreme being. I still go to church, not every Sunday, but I would identify as a Christian.
And I'm super curious, what was the first... When you say you started challenging what your parents would put onto you, what are you doing? What are the steps you're taking right now that you feel are challenging some of those norms?
Just making them understand that I'm not changing because of the environment I am in. I'm changing. I mean, it might have a small influence because you're by yourself, you're seeing all these different things, but having them accept that, you know, you're growing and you're going to have your own opinions and you're going to do your own thing, you're independent. Having them understand that that's coming from within and not just from like external influence only. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that's what happened to them when they moved from like Murang'a, whatever place, and moved to Nairobi. It was the same thing. Yeah, so I like to compare myself that way. I'm like, you know, you also moved from a small village and you moved to a big city. So the only difference is that I moved out of Africa and I went to North America.
Yeah, when how long have your parents been in Nairobi? Or did they move way before you were born? Like, that was way past. Like, okay.
They moved in the early 20s. I know my dad moved to Nairobi when he was like 21. He went to Nairobi University.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, I think my dad did too. Wow, there's so much.
There's so much. Very little time.
Thank you for sharing, first of all. I think it's always so interesting to have to ask my friends questions, because it's like I don't even know where to start, where to go with it, but like I've learned a few things that I didn't know about you, and I really appreciate that.
I'm glad.
And I think my only other question would be, what do you see yourself, not what do you see yourself as, but what do you see for yourself in the upcoming years? What are some of your big goals? Do you have any, or are you more of a short-term person? Like, what is this space, what does this feel like being a recent grad and navigating, you know, career choices, or you know what you want to do, where you want to live, maybe? I don't know. What's that like right now?
I would say I got asked the same question during my graduation, and they asked me, so what does the future look like? And up until today, my friends still make fun of me. Jason is like, so Wacheke, what is your future like? And I'm like, I don't know about the future, but what I can say is I want to take every day as it comes. If there's need for change to come from within me, then I'm willing to make that change if it's going to make me a better person. But I see myself using my business skills or my education, my Bachelor of Commerce, to do more of social entrepreneurship aspect of business. I'm really involved with like learning a lot about the indigenous culture of Canada. A lot of people don't know about the indigenous culture of Canada. It's quite interesting, and and I feel I identify more of that with them because they have a culture. Which is what we people from Kenya also have. We identify with that Kikuyu culture, Meru culture, whatever it is, and we embrace it. And so I want to see myself being more involved from a social aspect of business, like growing, if it's the environment, if it's like the people, if it's the economy kind of thing. But it's having a positive return to those three aspects.
Okay, nice. Good luck with all of that. And I know that question is going to come up probably in the next 2 years from so many people. And it's encouraging, though, to see like how you're like, the future is what I make it. And I think that's like the best way you can approach it, because it's like there's no real blueprint, despite us being raised like there was one blueprint we were supposed to be going for. But like there really isn't. And it's life is what you make it. So like, good luck.
Live it.
And congratulations on grad again.
Thank you.
I know it's not easy, and as an immigrant, I know that's a whole other story.
It is.
So like, you've done an amazing job by graduating, just like your family said. And
thank you.
Yeah, man, let's see from now, you know? I mean,
the
give
pressure. Give me answer.
Give me answer.
Happy Network.